on time because he's an Ent. So that makes us one all night about Tolkien. You know, if we gave Cliff a stage and a microphone, and this place, the Scum and Villainy Cantina in Hollywood, was open 24 hours, I think Cliff would marathon talking Tolkien. What do you think? Like, that man can go hours and days and not run out of things to say about Tolkien. I guess that's why Cliff produced and wrote Ringer's Lord of the Fans, which won a bunch of audience awards and documentaries at film festivals and sold to Sony Pictures and everything like that. I see the chat room. I hear drums in the deep. I see Sarah Thrawn saying, "Hey, Justin, hi." I see Larry West Mason. Kaylin is in the room. Tara Knox. I love seeing everybody show up in the chat room. I don't know where Cliff is. He hasn't texted me. He hasn't called me. He didn't call out sick. So it's just me and you. So, and our lovely audience in the house. Let's hear it for the audience. There you go. You too can join the crowd here. Yeah, like there's so many people here that we had to position the cameras because it's just out of control. But this place is open to the public. It's family friendly. It's all ages. There's a kitchen. There's black cherry soda. There's Wizards Brew. So it's just you and me and the hotline. I have got the hotline right here. This is a brand new, unpaid, sponsored post. This is not a sponsored post. I paid for this with my blood. This is the new iPhone. And there is the phone number and the hotline, 530-64. Text me, because sometimes it's hard to hear for everybody watching this show. I really have issues with this phone because I have to look at the phone to unlock it, and that does not help me. If I get a text message like we have for this last 6 years, I cannot just like tap on it and look at the message from here. I literally have to bend my neck over so it can Face ID me to look at the text message you guys sent. So bear with me as I get used to this. So we've got Caroline C. Bradley. Jesse Jackson in the chat room says, "Traffic is a pain in the butt in Hollywood." You better believe it. I've even gotten towed because I didn't pay the parking meter in time. So I've learned my lesson. Hollywood sucks. But one block away, right there on Vine Street, there's a parking garage. I think it ends up being $3 in parking. To come park over there, you can walk 1 block and be here at Scum and Villainy Cantina, which is open every day. Jeannie Bourgeois is my favorite person in the chat room because she's at the top right now of my little chat. I've got everything around here. I wanted to have a great discussion about horror directors and why they make great Lord of the Rings films, but I need the informed expertise of one Clifford Broadway to have that conversation. So in the meantime, I'll just talk to you and I'll scroll through the chat room. Facebook updated their website, so the chat room looks different than it normally does. I'm sorry. Nicholas says, "Hello, just got here. How are you doing?" I'm doing well. How are you? I'll wait for your answer.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, look, there's a quick beam that just walked across our little screen there. So we're trying to think of ways to make this a little more Shire-like. Like, I love Scum and Villainy, but we're about 2 years away from any new Star Wars films. And this is a Tolkien show. And the owner has given us permission to make this look more Shire-like. That's why we got the green Hobbit door in the background. See that nice Bilbo's door over there? And the lighting scheme is very, very Hobbity, very green dragon. So we're looking for ideas of how to make our background, maybe banners of Rohan hanging down, Can we find the banners of Rohan or Gondor, and maybe put a little fan so they're just constantly waving, so it looks like we feel like we're Éowyn standing on the edge of Edoras with the wind blowing and the waves behind us.
Maybe the banners of the White Tree of Gondor?
Isn't that dead?
Have you ever heard the clear ringing of silver trumpets? Hello, everybody. Nice to see you. I'm here. I'm actually here. And I have a good excuse for why a wizard is never late, but I am.
You have no excuse for traffic because you don't even drive.
No, it wasn't traffic. I'm a shepherd of the trees. Everybody knows my nickname is Quick Bean, and even though I look like a human being, I'm actually an ent. Today was a very special project at my house because tomorrow the landlord is bringing all the tree cutters, the orcs, the Uruk Hai of Isengard, and the tree cutters are going to destroy all of our trees at our property. So
40-year-old trees.
Actually, one of them, the Chinese elm tree,
Yeah.
is about 68 years old. It is a grand canopy of a Chinese elm. I have a mulberry tree on the front of my property that produces a bountiful amount of actual fruit, real mulberries. Make yourself a hobbit pie. If you want a pie, come to my place. I'm making a mulberry pie. So with the landlord threatening to tear down my trees, I was actually in the backyard today, literally
chained to the tree
climbing.
until the police came
No.
and cut the chain because you're one of those
No, thanks.
hippie Tolkien quick beam
no.
ent people that chain themselves to trees
Yeah,
so they won't cut them down, right?
There was a sentence, and I'm going to finish it. I don't know what that was, but there's a sentence, and I'm going to finish it, okay? Literally, I was climbing a painter's ladder under threat of my life with bugs, giant spiders all over me. My friends were down there trying to help me, and I was using twine, sticks, and like yards of rope to bring the branches off of my roof so they don't get cut and destroyed, and tie up the tree ups that will grow up in between, the easement between our properties. And I'm trying to take care of all this business. Believe it or not, I did not fall off and break my neck like I thought I was going to do. And in desperation, I accidentally snapped off the top of the tree branches that I was deliberately trying to save. It was a disaster. I'm so sorry. I feel really bad. My apologies to all the tree spirits and to Yavanna, who of all the Valar beloves the birds and the beasts and the trees and the living things of Arda. My apologies, Yavanna. I tried valiantly. I did my best. Anyways, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. As far as being like a generational hippie tree hugger, and maybe my mom was, but I'm not.
Okay.
She was.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely Mr. Please don't cut down my trees. Does that make me a crazy, unbalanced environmentalist?
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, you don't
No.
like progress.
No. Hi, everybody.
Progress.
No.
Hey, someone in the chat
Progress
room,
is great, but not at the expense of, destroying my trees. You're not going to do that. You're not going to do that.
Oscar in the chat room says you guys also need to be on bare feet. Let me tell you something about bare feet and bars.
Bare feet?
Never.
No, not this. Not walking around here.
You do not walk around in an establishment known as a cantina
Yes.
with bare feet. You just
No.
don't. You know that glasses get dropped all the time in places like this.
Yeah.
It's not a safe. They could mop and sweep the floor every day and every morning and every night, just like they do here. But it's still not safe to
Yes.
walk around bare feet.
Yes,
but
hobbits do like guacamole. Pipsquet, that's a great question.
I don't.
Pipsquet, I'm telling you, hobbits, if there was any guacamole in Middle-earth, I think they would love it.
Hobbits
and hi there. How you doing?
would not cultivate guacamole would not cultivate avocados because they take too much dang water, and they would have to do a lot of river work to support
Release the river.
avocados. Hey, Cliff.
Hi. Hi, Justin. Good to see you.
Speaking of bare feet, there were a lot of bare feet at a gathering last week, right? You were at Griffith Park to
talked about
celebrate
that, yes.
Bilbo's birthday.
On our little mini show that we did last week
Yeah.
from my living room, we had ample opportunity to meet brand new people, got really comfortable with some of our cozy friends who are there every year. There was 150 people, lots of bare feet, and lots of food. An organization who brought all the LARPing equipment
Yes.
to do the fighting.
Oh,
and
yeah, that was amazing.
the giant foam shields and halberds and weapons and swords. And boy, there was a lot of kids beating each other up all day. It was really fun to watch.
Wow.
It was great.
Yeah,
actually.
there was so much good cosplay. Now, Cliff,
Yeah,
it
hi,
is
how you
now
doing?
October. It's Orktober.
It is Orktober. The trees are strong, my lord. Their
So-
roots grow deep.
So, how do you what do you change your Twitter handle to celebrate the month of October?
I never changed my Twitter handle at
You know
all.
how people some do that? They change their name to something spooky,
Or they change their name to I'm going to Comic-Con. Or yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? So Cliff Broadway. Let's have people at home give you your spooky Twitter name. Clifford Broadway. What is a spooky version of Clifford Broadway?
I don't know. Clifford the big undead dog? What? I don't know.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Clifford the big undead dog. Let's see.
What's Broadway? Were there any scary movies with Broadway or? Man,
There was a
so
horror-
someone in the chat room has to come up with something clever.
No, we
by
don't.
the end of this episode, we're going to give Cliff here a new Twitter name for the month of October.
Yeah, okay,
and
are
it's
we?
all up to you.
All of a sudden,
That's
this is a
what-
thing.
That's
No,
what
God,
you
no.
get. That's what you get for showing up late to the month of October. My favorite month
Well,
of the
now
year.
that it is October, every karaoke night, I'm going to be singing selections from The Nightmare Before Christmas here at Scum and Villainy or at other bars
The
and
Nightmare
establishments
Before Cliffmas.
around The Nightmare Before Cliffmas. Oh, there you go. I'll take it. I'll
All
take
right.
it.
I've done the first one. You guys in the chat room, you have until the end of the show.
The
Cliff,
Nightmare Before Cliffmas.
since it's October,
Cliffmas.
we have to have a discussion about why horror filmmakers make great partners in the world of Middle Earth.
Now, this is an unusual thing to say because it is so true that Mr. Horror Splattermeister himself, Peter Jackson, walked in to the room and amazing things happened. Least likely person. If you had ever told me in the year 1999 someone's going to go and make 3 Lord of the Rings movies, I wouldn't have ever picked Peter Jackson as the person on my list to go to. None of us would have. We didn't know. We didn't know what he was going to do. We were used to him taking a lawnmower and putting it on a bunch of zombies and releasing 300 gallons of red goo
In
on
Dead
camera
Alive, right?
in one shot. In one shot.
And Meet the Feebles.
No, not Meet the Feebles. Meet the Feebles is, well, wacky, completely wacky, but it is nowhere near as bloody as Dead Alive. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
So why is it horror movie
Well, I
directors
just remember when the
Guillermo del Toro and Peter Jackson all of a sudden get handed Middle Earth
when it was
projects?
announced that Peter Jackson's
funny
going to be
thing.
doing a trilogy of Lord of the Rings films, everyone scratched their head and says,
We all
Peter
did.
Jackson,
Yeah.
the horror director?
Yep.
Kind of like, it reminded me of like in Back to the Future 2 when he says, who's president of the United States? And he says, Ronald Reagan, the actor? Like, that's exactly what it felt when Peter Jackson was announced as Lord of the Rings director.
Really,
And-
that's true. Well, he had done The Frighteners. He had done lots of splatter movies.
Yeah, lots of
particularly,
them.
Dead Alive. So fantastic. I love that movie. And now
Clifford Bloodway.
Yeah, there you go.
I like that one. Clifford Bloodway.
Kilford Broadsword. Okay, that's funny.
Ha! I like it.
Clifford Bloodway.
You guys are
Maybe
awesome.
that's actually not so bad. Clifford Bloodway or Clifford the Undead Dog. I'm trying to.
Kilford Broadsword.
That's funny.
I like it.
Clifford Bloodway. But here's the thing.
I like
Here's the
Bloodway.
thing. One little independent movie that made magic happen and made a star out of Kate Winslet was called Heavenly Creatures. And it was the only signifier we had that Peter Jackson could apply his skills to more gentle narrative material. Even though it was a true crime thriller.
Based
the
on
movie-
a true story.
It is a true, that's why it's called true crime.
You know what I just heard?
Yes.
You know what I just heard?
But there was something in the Heavenly Creatures movie that was magical and really interesting, and people were thinking,
And very dark.
and
very dark.
maybe he could handle this, but maybe not. We really didn't know what the hell he was going to do.
I just heard that the main character in Heavenly Creatures, which is based on a true story, is actually a very, very well-known author that has a pen name.
Yes.
And who has written tens and tens of books, 10s, 20s, 30s of books, hundreds of books, all best-selling. And you would not know that this author, under an assumed author's name, is the subject of Peter Jackson's Heavenly Creatures.
Indeed.
But it's not just the directors, right? It's not just the directors, because we here in LA we're in the middle of a thing called Beyond Fest, and we just had a weekend of David Cronenberg films.
Yes.
Who is the king of a horror genre, a subgenre of horror.
I don't know what to call that subgenre of horror, but
he did The Fly with Jeff Goldblum.
Cronen.
Dead Ringers. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. And you know that GIF on the internet of the head exploding? Like literally, there's a guy at a news desk, and then his head literally explodes.
You mean Scanners?
That is from David Cronenberg's imagination.
Scanners.
Yes.
Is that the movie?
No, it's a GIF. It's a meme.
Yeah, but it's from the movie. The name of the movie the GIF is from is Scanners.
Scanners.
Thank you.
But nobody cares about movies from the 20th century anymore. It's all about meme culture. Memes are life.
Anyways, after seeing The Fly and Dead Ringers and, of course, Naked Lunch, you get a taste of Cronenberg and that things are always gross, and it usually involves body horror or some kind of body mutilation.
Yes.
Mutilation. There's a lot of body horror and mutilation in his movies. What's interesting is that the Beyond Fest people are walking all over town. I see them everywhere, and they've got these big print T-shirts, Cronenberg for president. And they're like, they're walking around L.A. Everybody at the Beyond Fest is totally doing this.
But here's why we're talking about David Cronenberg and bloody horror.
Because his composer was Howard Shore.
Howard Shore,
who did all of Cronenberg's movies.
Made his career on working with David Cronenberg
on these
horror
films.
All of those horror movies of the 80s.
And late 90s.
And late 90s. And early 90s. Because by the late 90s, he was working on Lord of the Rings. So here we have Peter Jackson, a horror director, Dead Alive, Meet the Feebles, like all the stuff he's done with Richard Taylor.
Meet the Feebles is not horror. You cannot mention it as a horror
rated R
film.
Muppet movie.
It's a rated NC-17 Muppet movie, which is beyond.
NC-17 is horror to my Christian upbringing.
Oh, gosh.
When you get a director...
your virgin ears, Justin.
When you get a horror director...
Virgin eyes.
And who does the horror director bring in to make the music of Middle-earth is the king of horror soundtracks.
It didn't make any sense.
Horror soundtracks.
When it happened at the time, nobody thought that combination of horror musician, horror composer, horror director, what are they going to do to Tolkien? We were justifiably nervous. And so that was our perspective, from our editorial perspective. In 1999 and the year 2000, our spy reports from New Zealand were so, tentative. We were all freaking nervous. Actually, most of us were terrified about what the project was going to look and smell like. It really was weird.
And sound like. Look,
yeah,
all we had to go on were Howard Shore's soundtracks from David Cronenberg films. And
we didn't know.
You're reading the book. A lot of fans were reading Tolkien's books and be like, I do not picture Howard Shore playing in my head
while I'm
reading this elvish poetry.
Rivendell, yeah, it's not
written in the wake of World War I. Why do you think horror has been the biggest supporter of Tolkien filmmaking? What is it about the music, the imagery, the director's style? Why is Howard Shore, a horror musician, suddenly propelled to Lord of the Rings, and he makes a soundtrack that is second only to John Williams' career?
If that. Wow. You know what?
So that's the thesis of today's show.
and there can't. I don't know how you can connect these threads except...
But you have to, because it's not just a horror director, Peter Jackson. It's not just Howard Shore, a horror soundtrack. It is, who was Peter Jackson's heir apparent? It was Guillermo del Toro, a Mexican horror filmmaker.
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
Okay?
And you look at that. That's also true. Yeah.
Dude, let's even go back further.
Yes.
Who's the first person that put Tolkien to film? Ralph Bakshi filmed that animated movie, Rotoscoped. He filmed the whole movie. It was filmed basically as a horror movie. I mean, it's very scary. The depictions and the way Ralph Bakshi designed Lord of the Rings, and the costumes, and the pacing, and the editing, and the colors that he chose, that is the scariest animated film one can watch.
I would, and it's quite bloody at the end.
And it's quite bloody. So
now here's the thing.
You have a whole track record.
Perhaps it might be that there's something thematic in Tolkien that attracts people to this material. The way that Howard Shore and Mr. Peter Jackson were attracted to it. It might be that some of the horror that is shown, revealed through characters and through the machinations of Sauron's evil and the things that happen, there's plenty of horrific elements within Tolkien, and yet they're always against, or I would say, compared to, or I would say, what's the word I'm looking for? Positioned against great beauty. There are high-end extremes of great beauty and profound horror. Within the pages of Tolkien, there's something about the bad guys. There's something about the Witch King of Angmar that no man can kill. These evil, undead, 9 mortal men who are now corrupted vessels whose presence of evil is so profound, natural beings and bugs and animals will leave the area in terror. It is the most amazing thing that those horses were trained under torture and black magic to withstand the fear that they felt with the black riders actually riding on top of them. There are very, very strong, strong stripes of recognizable horror in Tolkien, as much as there are vibrant and powerful recognitions of beauty, extreme romantic beauty. And I like these extremes in Professor Tolkien's work. That's the word I'm looking for, juxtaposes them thematically. And I think that perhaps some of the evil and some of the real horror that Professor Tolkien is not shy about. When you read in the book the way Professor Tolkien just describes the mountains of shadow that are the bordering natural fence of the land of Mordor, high, impassable mountains. Well, he describes them in such horrific Stephen King ghoulish language. He says there are slag heaps of filth on the side of the mountains, and it looks like the mountains vomited up their toxic mess all over the mountainside. And Professor Tolkien uses horrific imagery even just in the landscape. This is before our lead characters, Frodo and Sam, even cross the border and get inside Mordor. When we do get inside Mordor, there are even more horrors that await. The Watcher in the Water is a classic creature of horror, no background, no explanation where it comes from. It is a leviathan from the background of a tapestry of history where things are so dark and monsters are so evil, we don't know what the hell is going to happen next. So maybe these horror directors and people are recognizing there are elements in Tolkien that are just attractive to them as part of the story.
Back to the music, someone in the chat room made a comment saying, in the chat room, someone said, horror music is the perfect soundtrack for The Ring. And on the surface, yeah, that makes sense. Throwaway comment. Dig deeper. Why does horror music seem like the perfect soundtrack to The Ring? The Ring is supposed to be the most ideal, beautiful. It tricks you. It is
the most seductive and alluring.
Seductive, alluring. It is meant to entice you into its presence and its love and its power and its control.
It's the mega Horcrux.
So that is
it's
not
the Horcrux that has a mind of its own.
So that's not a horror thing. That the Ring should be the most beautiful thing you've ever heard.
But that is a horror thing, isn't it? It is.
But yeah, if
it's
it's
beauty that disguises one of the most significant evils in the world. By its beauty.
Well, yeah, he's saying the music in the movie tells the audience like this is dangerous. It's a dangerous thing.
Yes.
But yes, that's what soundtracks are supposed to do. But if you look at music in the Lord of the Rings as part of that world, I mean, we sing songs in the movies like in universe. If the music is in universe, then the Ring's music should be the most beautiful, and that's why when it destroys you, it does it so.
It is beautiful. I think
subtly.
The Ring theme, which I have mistakenly called Isildur's theme many times, and of course Doug has corrected me. Doug Adams, the guy who is our very, very talented friend who has worked so closely with Howard Shore and wrote the music of the Lord of the Rings films. Great book. Get your hands on Doug Adams' book if you can get your hands on it. Great. He said that recognizable piece of music, the theme of the Ring itself, is so specific, and I believe that when I hear it, I hear sadness. I don't hear horror. I don't hear beauty. When you hear the Ring theme, it is terribly, terribly sad. Because every person whose lives are touched by it, endless tragedy. Starting from Isildur, right on down the list to Smeagol, right on down the list to Bilbo and Frodo and Sam. Everybody who touches it receives nothing but pain and regret.
So
and it's like there's like the sound of a very sad, painful longing.
And that's the best horror, is not the stuff that is shock value.
I don't know.
The saws of the world. That's that's not even a horror. That's just like
horror music from one film to another can be wildly different. I mean, if you saw Hereditary this year, one of the best horror films that's been out in a decade, the music in Hereditary is completely different from what John Carpenter was composing for his own films, you know.
Right.
When he was and that's right, John Carpenter made his own music for his own films,
you know,
his own horror films. So it's very different stuff.
Comment.
I love the score for Hereditary. It's fantastic. It's insanely good. And atmospheric and creepy.
Another point about horror people being attracted to Tolkien. Who was the king of horror actors? Who was the last living king of horror actors?
Christopher Lee. They were just talking about the Burning Man.
So we're like it just keeps going from Ralph Bakshi's directorial choices in Lord of the Rings in the 70s to Peter Jackson, a horror director, Howard Shore, a horror composer, to Christopher Lee, the king of horror.
Yeah. The king of all horror films, Christopher Lee.
We've touched a little bit about this over the last year or so since Amazon announced their series. We have to keep reinforcing it. Amazon, The Lord of the Rings is a horror series. You need to look at the most compelling horror directors and showrunners from television that can put Tolkien to good use. And I'm talking about the showrunner of The Punisher, or the showrunner of Constantine, or some of these very dark TV shows.
Yes, give me more Constantine, please.
Like because the darkest filmmakers can make the most beautiful poetry. And that's what happened with Lord of the Rings. Mm-hmm. The darkest filmmakers wrote some of those beautiful songs. I was surprised to know that
I've seen Aronofsky do it.
Yeah.
I've seen Darren Aronofsky do that as well.
And it's not just the showrunners and the directors and the actors. It's the soundtrack people, the composers. Like, if you're thinking about who takes on the legacy of Howard Shore and takes the Lord of the Rings music into the next 10 years and $1 billion budget, who's that composer? You start in horror. Start in horror. That should be the first place that Amazon goes to start looking for the creative talent for their Amazon series. Because,
well, you know, James Gunn, before doing Guardians of the Galaxy, was directing for Troma,
and
some of the most like off-kilter horror that you can ever find.
And what is the most
avoid
successful?
If you want to avoid it.
The most successful comic film character series ever is Spider-Man. Sam Raimi made Spider-Man.
That's another connection.
Awesome.
Mr. Sam
And
Raimi, Evil Dead Sam Raimi.
He was a horror director,
That's
comedy
true.
horror.
That's true.
But he
Jumping
was
into-
definitely in the horror section of my Blockbuster.
Yeah.
All of his
Well,
movies
that's
were.
where Evil Dead belongs.
Yeah,
But, you know,
next to Cronenberg and next to Jackson.
Army of Darkness is just a big old lovely piece of cotton candy. It's as fun and goofy as can be.
You know,
I love
I would
Army of
love,
Darkness.
I would
love it.
love a showrunner that who acts basically as an executive producer, but a showrunner for Lord of the Rings that goes and hires William Friedkin to do an episode, you know, or a story arc.
Whoa.
You know, goes and hires Cronenberg to do an episode. Hey,
Whoa.
hey, play in this world for a few weeks.
Whoa.
I think this is where Lord of the Rings will be the big winner at all the award shows and grab the biggest audience. You can't play this safe, Amazon.
This is interesting. Look at this. Oscar Villanueva, thank you, in the live chat says that Wojciech Kilar was going to be the composer for the Lord of the Rings score before Howard Shore actually stepped in. I did not know that. Did you guys know that? Say that again? I did not know. This composer, and forgive me for stumbling through the pronunciation, but it's Wojciech Kilar, was up for the job before Howard Shore came in. Really? Yes. How intriguing. Are we getting a little bit of feedback on me? Just a little bit? Or maybe it's just me. Oh, it's this one. It's this one. That's what. Oh, I'm talking over here. All right. Here's the thing. You want this one? Okay. He's gonna go over here. He's gonna take that one. All right. Tell you something else. I did not think about these concurrent threads between Raimi and his background and Peter Jackson being able to jump from horror into a very, very large-scale franchise. It's not something I would have expected.
It's not just a franchise. The Lord of the Rings.
Well, hello, yeah, that was, you know, but it ended up making the end result so much more pleasing. It was so much more of a surprise for Peter to have done what he did, with all of us expecting far, far less. And you know what? Maybe that is to New Line Cinema's credit. We had such lowered expectations because we thought, what's Peter Jackson going to deliver?
Well, also,
and he ends up delivering lightning in a bottle, and it was fantastic. And the Balrog was so scary. It was really terrifying in the very few minutes that it appears on screen.
Well, Cliff, you just brought up another horror connection. New Line Cinema,
of all people, they're
was
famous for
the film studio
horror.
for horror.
Yep.
They
Another connection.
made their bones on Friday the 13th.
Nightmare Before Christmas.
Halloween.
The Nightmare on Elm Street.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Halloween. Scream.
The Scream
Yeah.
films. You know
So
what?
if you-
Johnny
if-
Depp, young Johnny Depp being sucked into the bed, and all the blood exploding on the ceiling. But that's classic. That's such a classic. I love that stuff.
So, and I just read today that New Line Cinema, the rejuvenated New Line Cinema, is having a reality show where you can submit and you could win a horror development contract with New Line Cinema.
Really?
Yeah.
I've got one.
It was just announced today. But
I've got a horror franchise that I can propose to New Line Cinema.
Yeah, they already did it.
Yeah,
Lord of the Rings.
the orange-faced clown meat never leaves office.
Oh boy, no.
There's a horror movie for you.
We are a Tolkien.
Sorry about that. I'm sorry about that.
Stop.
I try my best to avoid, but it's an obvious joke.
Life is enough
Sorry.
of a horror that we don't need to talk about
let's
it.
be nice.
But
let's
hey,
talk
so
about other things.
why did New Line Cinema, the horror the horror studio do Lord of the Rings?
Because they had already gotten into bed with the fantasy action adventure of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And it
that was 10 years earlier.
That was successful for them. Wasn't that New Line? Yeah. Well, with New Line saying, oh, look, not only can we do horror, we can do fantasy action adventure, I guess they were feeling like we can really try our hand at this. But why New Line Cinema? Because the price tag was so juicy. And Peter Jackson was like, well, look at the tax incentives. And here, look at what an infrastructure I have here in Wellington. And you can bet that with the dollar, the exchange rate of the New Zealand dollar to the US dollar, it was very telling that the producers were getting twice the monetary value. For every dollar they got US, they got twice that. So every penny was on screen. You could see every single penny. They milked it for all they could get. But New Line Cinema were notoriously cheap. They were so cheap.
They were a small studio.
They were a cheap, small studio that made a little movie for $5 million, a horror movie for less than $10 million, and then made all the big bucks off of it. This is the scale of why horror movies are evergreen in this town. Because you make them so cheap, and they turn around so much money.
The first studio that had the contract for Lord of the Rings was Miramax.
And they passed.
Well, they didn't pass. Disney passed.
They passed because Peter would not condense the story down into one film.
Because
the way that Harvey was
Walt
yelling at
Disney owned Miramax, and Disney said, we will fund 2 films, not 3. And Harvey Weinstein, the benevolence of Harvey Weinstein, said, all right, take this to another studio because I'm not making this 2 movies.
Okay. All right. Oh, so that's what that was.
So
okay.
So that's why Harvey Weinstein is credited on every Lord of the Rings films as an executive producer. He wasn't involved in it, but he had first option.
But I was just going to think that New Line Cinema was happy to get 3 films for the cheap price tag. They only succeeded
$100 million?
They succeeded in financing the film by pre-sales to all the foreign markets. Every foreign market was like, okay, we'll pre-sale this country, and then pre-sale Greece, Turkey, and then, Norway, and then country by country, they got all the foreign markets to cough up. That way New Line Cinema didn't have to pay a dime. They pre-sold the movie.
Why did a horror studio greenlight Lord of the Rings out of everybody else?
Because they said to all of their distributors, we can make this for the smallest amount of money and is the biggest fantasy franchise. Let's do it. And so in pre-sales only, with all the territories being sold, they financed it.
I don't think fantasy played into it. You were talking about the biggest horror film studio, hiring a horror director with a horror actor, Christopher Lee, with a horror soundtrack guy. This is a scary movie. This is like a strike down the horror lane. They did not sell this as a fantasy movie.
No. They sold it as a surefire investment. They sold it as, we won't lose money on this. They pre-sold the territories. I'm not lying to you guys, okay? They pre-sold the territories. And then they were like, ironclad deal. We've got it. We can make this. It's not going to lose anybody any money. Although they weren't so sure. They weren't so sure because the first film, had it not been theatrically successful, it would have meant that the other 2 films would have been severely cut back in post-production, and they would have been issued just on a home video release under the table with nobody really paying attention to it.
Well, we have heard from all the actors that on set while they were filming Lord of the Rings, there was an expectation that if the first film did not perform well, that the other 2 were direct-to-video.
Yep,
that's
for sure.
Right. So that people were just there to commune with each other. It was a bunch of actors in the beginning stages of their careers, working with a horror director from New Zealand and this crazy guy named Richard Taylor, taller than anybody, saying, hey, we're going to bring in this thing and it's going to look like this, but you can't see it right now because we still have to post. It's everything about this movie was made in a low-budget horror thing. And even the actors on set were like, "Yeah, we're just doing a horror movie."
That was the idiom of New Line Cinema. That's how they had a formula for success. That was their system. And if it's not Baroque, don't fix it.
So,
Right? Cogsworth
so
joke there.
flash forward to now, I don't see how Amazon can be successful in staying true to Tolkien and true to Lord of the Rings as we know it as a film franchise
without bringing in a horror director.
without being totally immersed in horror culture. It's not just a director. It's everything. It's actors. It's sound design. It's
You think?
everything has to start in horror genre
It does it?
because that's where Tolkien is best received. That's what I'm getting at. The question is why is Tolkien's stories best served by the horror community of creatives?
Maybe the better question is, let's just examine why, there's been a confluence of events where it seems that horror people have all gotten attached to Tolkien.
This is not a confluence.
No, there's just elements
This is
that have come
40
together.
years of horror filmmakers.
Well, does that make it an edict now for Amazon Studios that they really only need
I'm
to
saying
find
yes.
that type of people?
I'm saying yes.
Why? Because they're the only type of people who have the instincts for this type of work?
You're saying that the Lord of the Rings movies are not the most perfect films ever made? It is the truest that you could possibly ask for on the big screen to Tolkien.
They're really really, really, really excellent. Probably some of the very best, and I'd say for the genre, the best high fantasy ever made. But as far as being the very, very best films ever made, I'm so cautious. I'm so cautious about quantifying that.
Well,
That statement.
the current trend in Hollywood has been with Jurassic Park, with Marvel, with Star Wars, is that they pluck these directors that had one or two kind of independent hits, quirky science fiction stories, or something that people that prove themselves on the festival circuit, or had a little bit of success over here, and they put them in the big franchise. But they've all been in like this kind of sci-fi storytelling world. The Lord of the Rings Amazon series should start with the horror subculture genre, and that's why I'm talking about, like, I'm wearing the shirt for Mandy. Panos Cosmatos is one of those directors who is in the early stages of his career. He probably doesn't even want to jump on a franchise, but this is where they should be starting.
I tried to see Mandy 3 times last week, and every time I went to go see it, it was sold out. It was sold out over and over. Even when I said last week or the week before, I said, I'm going to go see that movie right now. Someone was talking with us live in the live chat, and I was going to leave and walk right on down to the Cine Lounge, and guess what? Sold out. Yeah, sold out.
Nationwide.
Yeah.
Nationwide, it is selling out every
Sold
weekend.
out everywhere. And it hasn't even gotten a wider release yet, has it?
And
We're talking
so
about the movie Mandy
Mandy
with Nicolas Cage.
is like a return to a form of a genre horror slasher filmmaking, but it's beautiful to watch. It is led by its musical soundtrack. So there are a lot of technical aspects of Mandy that apply to how The Lord of the Rings was brought into production. A lot of the same techniques of, hiring the soundtrack guy early and having him part of the development process.
Right.
So I see a lot in Panos Cosmatos, the director of Mandy, as I see in Peter Jackson, but I think Panos right now needs a couple bigger hits. Like, Peter had to work his way up from Meet the Feebles and Dead Alive to The Frighteners, a very mass market thing with Sean Astin's dad and Michael J. Fox, and then he was ready. He had to prove himself that so I feel like there will be one or two more movies before Panos can jump in Lord of the Rings, but he is absolutely the right type of guy with right type of thing.
I'm sure I will back you up on that after I see Mandy. I would love to see that. But here's the thing. When you say it should be
directors and composers and showrunners and effects people who it should be horror people. That is something I would caution you about. It's not like it should be. Maybe let's just say, don't be surprised.
Don't be surprised if it is an ongoing pattern that a showrunner or a director or composers with a very rich and specific horror background are brought in. Maybe we shouldn't be surprised. But should it be? I think it should be the most talented and eager Tolkien fans. That's who it should be. They should be hardcore Tolkien fans. That's the only time I want to make a statement of who should, because I mean, it's not my place, not yet, to tell Amazon what they should be doing. But being it should be someone who's got a passion, a real Stephen Colbert passion for Tolkien.
But it's not. It's two separate parts of a personality, a creative skill set. A passion for Tolkien is absolutely, like, they can hire all the way down. They can hire accountants that have passion for Tolkien. But I'm saying the creative sensibilities of horror lend itself to creating the best Middle-earth stories.
Okay. Maybe so. Maybe. And, you know, maybe I won't argue on that, because it actually has, that statement has maybe borne itself out with the evidence of, you know, what Jackson has done. I'm still dying to know what Del Toro would have made. I'm really, really curious to know.
Yeah, and why was Del Toro picked? Because there are millions of people that are Tolkien fans, but why was Del Toro picked?
The sound is off. Audio issues. Oh, it's back. Yay, it's back. Thank you. We fixed it. Very good.
So, and Cliff, knowing all the Weta artists, the people behind the scenes that you don't see their faces except for in the appendices and the making of features. Yeah. Having met a lot of them as we have over the years at Comic-Con and whatnot, a lot of them are horror fans for sure. Yep. Like they're at the midnight screenings. You know, they're talking about this movie. You know, so something about, again, another horror connection is that the best creative that produced Lord of the Rings was born out of a passion for horror storytelling.
Indeed.
So why of all genres of films is horror the one that lends itself to Tolkien?
I would go back to speculating that these talented filmmakers are attracted to this because of the elements of horror that are in this type of high fantasy.
Could someone like P.T. Anderson do Tolkien justice?
Really? Paul Thomas Anderson? You mean Boogie Nights and Magnolia Paul Thomas Anderson?
There Will Be Blood. Phantom Thread. Did he do Phantom Thread? Yeah.
I know. Yes. I know he did.
Your hesitation is the answer. Your hesitation is the answer.
I know he did There Will Be Blood and Phantom Thread. Don't eat the mushrooms. But I really don't know if Mr. Anderson's temperament, or as a visualist, would suit the material. No, not necessarily.
Exactly. So why his temperament does not suit the material? So why does horror suit Tolkien's material? Because when you read the book, no one thinks, oh, this is a horror book. Or I would categorize Lord of the Rings books as horror. I mean, farthest from it. But that's what I'm trying to get at. It's that the books have never been considered anywhere near the horror genre. But it's the filmmaking sensibilities of all these creatives.
Perhaps you have discovered a little mystery. Maybe there's something in the air. I don't know. But it would be not surprising to me at all for somebody who has done a lot of big fantasy and a lot of action films like Luc Besson. It would not be surprising to hear his name floating around, you know, in the Lord of the Rings series in the universe, maybe he would try to bring his visual style to this type of world. But Luc Besson has never done horror.
Nope.
He's never done horror.
Does the chat room think Luc Besson is an appropriate?
He is a striking visualist, and he is a well-known fantasist. Okay?
I know,
As far as
fantasy,
as far as-
absolutely. That's what I'm saying.
He's a fantasist.
Fantasist.
One of the best in the business.
But we've never had a fantasist produce anything of quality for Tolkien. And I think this is one of the reasons why I really want someone like Brian Fuller doing the Tolkien Amazon series. Like that man is born into horror storytelling. He did Hannibal, one of the best shows of the last 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, there's something in him that is dark and twisted, like all the other people that in Peter Jackson's world and New Line's world and Christopher Lee's world.
All right, then let's just say, okay, maybe other really popular fantasists like Tim Burton, Luc Besson, heaven forgive me, but
What does the chat room think of these names?
Terry Gilliam. All right.
What does the chat room say about Tim Burton?
The top three fantasists in filmmaking come to my mind as Terry Gilliam, Tim Burton, Luc Besson. They're like the
I agree.
biggest. But I don't think I would necessarily want any of them to step into Middle-earth, really.
So there you go. There's your answer.
See, isn't that interesting? But why should that be so? I mean, let Terry Gilliam take his hand to any subject, and I'm there. I want to see that movie. Faster than you can say knife. I want to see that movie. But if Terry Gilliam was going to do, like...
It would bring you pause.
If he did an episode of the series, he'd probably do it so wacky and strange, and I don't know he has the kind of... He doesn't have the reverence. He doesn't have the reverence for Tolkien to make it that way. This is intriguing. All right, people who are here with us in the live chat, here's Radagast saying, it seems like horror directors have a good sense of how to transition properly between lighthearted, spooky, and scary moods well. And that's why they serve Tolkien so well.
Interesting.
Pipscape.
They know how to take you to that edge and then pull back.
Yep. Huh. How about, you said Cronenberg earlier, right?
Would Cronenberg do Tolkien justice?
You seem to want that. You seem to be advocating that.
I have never been a fan. I've never been a fan of Cronenberg. Like it's too bloody. Like it's too scanners. Like The Fly gave me nightmares as a child. Like I can't like.
This stuff is amazing. This stuff is amazing. Cronenberg is amazing, and I wouldn't give him short shrift. But I don't know, Cronenberg is into psychosexual horror and body mutilation horror. None of that is in, not even close, none of that
Do you think
is in Professor Tolkien at all. So why would you say Friedkin? Why would you want to throw William Friedkin's name in the fire?
Because everything we know about the show so far that happens between The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings is that the armies of Mordor are starting to be assembled. So... is Cronenberg the type of mind that you want to see how they build an army worthy of Mordor?
All right. I don't know. Let me think. Let me think. Ron Howard, also a very successful fantasist. Ron Howard, great director, visually competent. Sometimes his films are pedestrian. Sometimes they're exceptionally good and rather smooth. I have to say that, you know, the Da Vinci Code is still one of my favorite guilty pleasures. Mm-hmm. But there's also his track record with Willow. Now, talk about David Yates for a second. David Yates has been like the go-to guy for Warner Brothers and J.K. Rowling to do the last few Harry Potter films.
He's a yes man. He's
the
a guy
Wizarding World,
that
Fantastic Beasts, and Where to Find Them, all by David Yates.
I don't see anything in Harry Potter movies that give me a sense of David Yates' style. David Yates does not have a style.
I see David Yates' style very particular in his films. Very particular. As opposed to Alfonso Cuarón. When I'm watching Prisoner of Azkaban, I can wildly tell the difference between the way David Yates does a shot and the way he edits versus the way Cuarón does.
Yeah.
You want to know something? I would love to have Alfonso Cuarón come into this world of Middle Earth. I would love it. I would love it. Are we getting like a thumbs up? We're getting thumbs up? Mr. Del Toro will never touch Middle Earth again. After what happened to him on The Hobbit
It
film,
hurts too much.
It hurts too much.
It hurts too much.
It hurts personally too much.
Yeah.
Because personally, he moved his life to New Zealand for a year and a half.
He moved his kids out of school
to a new
moved them
school.
to New Zealand.
By the time his kids started picking up a very distinct Kiwi accent, he was just having to fold and leave the production because MGM was still not coming to the table for The Hobbit. And he feels personally injured, and he told me personally that it hurt, it cut very deeply. So with the wound being as deep as it was, we would like to invite him. Yes, we would like to invite Guillermo del Toro. Come, William the Bull. We would love to invite you back to Middle Earth. We'd love that. But you know,
it hurts.
Instinctually, I get you, brother. I know
he
you're going to say no. He's going to say no.
He was pierced by a Morgul blade
Yep.
by MGM.
And the pain of his wound will never fully heal.
That's right.
That is a nice metaphor. But do you know what? My Mexican directors, my favorite, Iñárritu, yes, Iñárritu, Cuarón, Del Toro, they're like my three favorite directors right now working today. Seriously, they're just my favorite. I can't say enough for the contribution of the music. The Revenant is a very difficult film to watch. It's really hardcore, but the music by Ryuichi Sakamoto, fantastic score. And I would love, if he's still well enough to compose, I would love to have Sakamoto come in and bring some of his unique instrumentation and his sounds to Middle Earth. So I'm a big fan. I gotta say, I'm a big fan.
We've talked a lot about Amazon series and what's at stake. And do you think fans, at least in the first season, when coming into this new series from Amazon, it has to feel like Lord of the Rings movies?
Why else would they pay to license all that stuff from New Line Cinema?
So the first season especially, you can take us on a 5-year journey, season journey.
Take us on some departures, but
the first season has to
look and smell and feel like you're walking back into Middle Earth again,
So to that end, stick with the formula, and it seems that we're coming around to this formula
of horror directors and horror musicians. All right, let's talk to the folks in the live chat. Okay. Yeah, I was about to bring up Yates, but I definitely enjoyed Prisoner of Azkaban more than The Deathly Hallows.
I did too.
Thank you, Marfles. Wait.
I don't like David Yates. I just
Hold on. Marfles says that she doesn't agree that Del Toro left because he wanted to leave. He wasn't kicked out. Well, let's clarify that, Marfles. He wasn't kicked out. He had obligations to work on other feature films, and because of the year or 16-month ongoing delays, Del Toro could never even get out of pre-visualization. They couldn't actually go in front of the camera and start actual principal photography. And he wasn't really kicked out, but he didn't want to leave. So neither of those statements. Maybe we should accurately say Del Toro had his heart broken because he wanted to continue his commitment to Middle Earth, and he was forced by unfortunate circumstances and scheduling that was out of his control, because he already had $1 million commitments to work on other films for another studio. He couldn't back. You cannot back out of.
And they wouldn't give him a green light.
multi-million-dollar contract like that.
And they wouldn't give him a green light.
No green light existed. Wait a minute. It wasn't just The Hobbit that was shut down. It was James Bond. Okay, Casino Royale was shut down. They couldn't go into production on it. Same with The Hobbit. And the producers and people, you know, the Broccoli family, they're working on the James Bond film, they almost lost their director too. And a lot of other crew who were like, well, we can't produce it. We're just going to sit and wait for MGM to solve their problems.
It's not just creative. It's show business. And when they say
business.
When the studio has paid for 3 years of pre-production and everyone's ready to go, the sets are built, the cast is there, the costumes are there, we just need the green light to start turning the cameras on. Mm-hmm. And the studio says no, they stop work. so you stop
Yeah.
getting paid.
Yeah.
Guillermo has a couple mortgages here in LA. He's got a house in New Zealand. His kids, like, how do you not work for 6 months, a year?
Exactly.
It,
And how do you make a huge deal with another studio saying, I should be done with The Hobbit by then, therefore I'll be done with all that stuff, I could come in and start working on this film next.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen. I mean,
you
the
can't
overlap
just
didn't
not
happen,
work
but
for
bless his
2
heart.
years. You just can't not work for 2 years.
I'm all about, I don't know why, but I'm all about these strong visual fantasy images that come from watching Iñárritu. I watch The Revenant, and I sometimes feel like this is the most intense representation of the wilderness of Middle-earth, although it's not. It's North America. It's our wilderness. And yet we hear stories in Professor Tolkien about how brutal the wilderness is to travelers, and many unfortunate circumstances come upon them not from orcs or from weird creatures in the bottom of the lagoon, but just from the elements and nature and the fierceness of winter, which has brought down many a hero in Tolkien's world. So I see The Revenant, and I see the possibilities with Iñárritu bringing that kind of amazing vision. And of course, we all get a feel of it when we watch, Prisoner of Azkaban, because Cuarón is just amazeballs at what he's doing, and his transitions in that Harry Potter film are second to none. All right, some of my favorite transitions and edits are definitely Scott Pilgrim versus the World, but there's also some great edits in Prisoner of Azkaban, which are very unique, really special.
All right. Well,
I'm all about that.
Well, and one of the other really sad things about Guillermo leaving was everyone we've talked to at Weta Workshop says that the work they did for Guillermo's Hobbit movie
Was the best
work of their career.
Yeah.
And almost everyone is completely gutted that the best work of their career will never be seen because they scrapped everything.
Not unless there's some late breaking development where they do some funny publication and.
So it's but hey, Cliff, switching gears, we've got some news from our friends at Weta.
Do we?
Yeah.
Do we have some news? All right, wait. What we do have, let's talk about what we don't have. What we don't have, someone was also mentioning this in the live chat room, we don't have any news from Amazon Studios. They have put out neither a tweet, nor a press release, nor a whisper in the wind. We have nothing more from them.
There's 2 writers attached.
But nothing new. We have
There's
no
nothing new.
news and no
Only whispers on the wind.
No GNUs is good GNUs with Gary GNU. Right, guys?
Well, hey.
The Great Space Coaster? Anybody? Come on. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. All right.
Well, Cliff, this
So,
is pretty exciting.
What's the news with Weta? What did Weta say?
We got an email late last week, giving us a sneak preview of something.
Really?
Let me bring it up on the computer here.
Show me.
There's a new Kickstarter from some of our friends, tabletop designers at Weta.
Cool. What's that?
Johnny Lee Fraser, I think, has put together this Hagglethorn Hollow board game Kickstarter. It was fully funded in 3 hours.
Cool. Weta's designing a cool board game?
They build 3D tabletop sculptures for your D&D game and your fantasy game.
That's
so these are all
brilliant.
modular.
Cool.
These are all modular tabletop.
That is cool as anything, man. That is amazing. Look at that.
Look at this homestead. These are all tabletop sculptures that basically you can put around your map when you're playing D&D or any other fantasy game. You could probably even use these for your Dragon Dice games.
Hell yeah. We could. These are cool.
So we know that
those are cool.
we've been told that some of the theory, the design theory that went into Guillermo's Hobbit movie has been resurfaced and put into this.
Oh, cool.
And
look, ancient palace ruins.
Ancient
That's cool.
ruins.
Cool.
The Wizarding District. There's some of this stuff looks very much like Bree, or looks like Dale. Doesn't remind you a lot of Dale.
Yeah.
This
what
looks
is
like
that? The exclusive Wizard's Hut.
Whoa. It's supposedly this is loosely based on an early design for Radagast's home.
Wow.
And they've repurposed some of that design theory into this Kickstarter. They have so many of these beautiful. They're all they come painted or unpainted, and he'll do custom paint jobs. So if you want a Hobbit-themed tabletop set to go with a lot of your figures on the shelf or in your gaming, he will paint this in tones of Middle-earth because Johnny worked on all the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit movies.
This is
so
delicious.
He knows.
This is so delicious, man. This is so cool.
So it's pretty amazing. Let's go back up.
I am so down for
and
that.
Show you some of this.
Radagast says, I would just decorate my whole house with those things.
You can go to their Kickstarter. It's called Hagglethorn Hollow on
so
Kickstarter. Cool. Look at that. They've already basically quadrupled their goal on the first day. And the detail on this is pretty amazing. But the cool thing is, I'm going to pause that and just kind of skip through some of the stuff. Like it's built to be modular, so you can put them in a bunch of different ways.
Do you know what these shots remind me of? Just show that for just a second. This reminds me of how cool it was with the bigatures, which we unfortunately lost in the Hobbit trilogy, where they were just doing everything digital. But with these bigatures, the camera would move in really, really close to the scale model, creating that illusion of movement over there. It's so cool. Oh my gosh. Who?
So you can stack. They've built all of these things to be modular, so you can stack them in new ways.
That guy is so cool. Who is he?
Johnny designed a lot of The Hobbit and designed
cool.
a lot of Dale, and they have built this tabletop. So they're such huge fans of Lord of the Rings that you can actually stack a couple things and make it look like Edoras. Like of course they can't call it Edoras and they can't call it Bree and they can't call it Tolkien things, but it really is. It really is.
Well, did you see that they have like Hoggle and they have the two characters from Labyrinth?
Yep.
There was Hoggle.
Yep.
Because, David Bowie kept mispronouncing his name wrong and he kept saying Hoggle.
So
that was him. And he was sitting there there was the two guys who are guarding the red and the blue door, to where you have to, solve the logic riddle between which one is telling the truth and which one's telling the lie.
So look at some of the exclusive pictures. This is especially for our show, people watching the show. Look at some of these pictures.
One of us always tells the truth, and one of us always lies.
So they've designed these pieces to look like an attack on Bree.
Whoa. Okay, so these look like Warhammer miniatures.
Yeah, so they've taken Warhammer miniatures, but they've stacked their pieces to. This is the actual map of Bree, and this is from a guy that worked on Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. He knows actually what Bree looks like.
Yeah.
Based on Peter Jackson and Weta's
Well, they had
designs.
a plan. They had a city plan. They had a layout.
And so here's the city layout of
Bree. Oh, good.
Bree.
There's Bree. Now that is cool.
So
Look at that.
They cannot call it Bree for copyright reasons, but this is basically Bree. It looks pretty cool. It also looks like Dale. Now, let's look at Dale for a second. That's from the Hobbit movie. That's Dale, right?
That is Dale.
Right?
Yes.
What did it have another name? Once upon a time? No, it was always
Dale.
called Dale.
It was always Dale.
And of course, Dale is where we get the best of Thranduil.
Yes.
So, if this looks like Dale, and this is the Hagglethorn Hollow, Johnny says that he'll custom paint this set to look like the Dale colors.
I'm digging that. That is so cool.
Dale, Hagglethorn Hollow. Imagine what you can do on your bookshelf,
Yes.
on your game table. Let's look at that. Dale from The Hobbit, as designed by Weta. Hagglethorn
Hagglethorn
Hollow, designed by Weta artists.
How
I mean,
perfect.
how perfect does Thranduil look riding in to Hagglethorn Hollow?
You got hit. There he is on his giant elk.
That is, and he'll custom paint it to look like Bree.
Really?
He'll custom paint it to look like Shire folk.
Really?
How
Cool. Now hold on.
basically-
Nicholas Hawley is fantastic. He says, "This looks nice if I wanted to make a short stop motion animated film using these as a background."
110%.
Dude,
Again, let's
that's
cycle-
brilliant. Nicholas, do it. I think you should do it.
This is the
That
best Kickstarter you can think of for set pieces, and
Yeah,
you,
it's great.
You saw the video. The video allows you. They're all modular, so you can stack different pieces. And he's actually got secret plans. He's actually got
Really?
secret instructions
Really?
on which pieces to buy to stack to make like Gondor and make like Edoras and Rohan and the Shire. So we're pretty excited to...
I think that's really cool. I think I would love to get one of those things for my Dragon Dice table. That
So
would
we're
be
pretty
so
excited
cool.
to help Johnny out and show you guys the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
But check this out, Cliff. We have an exclusive interview between Johnny and Daniel Falconer. They just sent it to us. We're gonna post it on the website.
Oh, how cool!
So talking all about the fantasy background and the Tolkien
Cool.
connections and Weta's Lord of the Rings connections to this Kickstarter. So look for that. It's pretty
I'm down for that.
awesome.
Yeah.
So
It's like I'm running a show here. I'm not the bartender. Yes, we've been open for quite a while. Come on in. They'll serve you over here, sir. So that's kind of fascinating that Mr. Daniel Falconer has just come out of the woodwork. I haven't seen that boy in years. He's really awesome.
yeah, he missed Comic-Con this year.
He is one of my favorite artists working down there with the team. And I
And-
would love to see this interview that he did.
Yeah.
That's great.
So we'll post that on the OneRing.net this week. Look for it. In the meantime, Hagglethorn Hollow on Kickstarter. Hagglethorn Hollow on Kickstarter. Hey,
Wow.
you know what
So-
else is going on this week, Cliff?
But
New York Comic-Con is this weekend.
is it really that soon?
Yes.
Okay, just a program note for all of our East Coast fans. This is a big show. This is going to be a very, very big convention. I'm excited. I'm excited to be there when I'm not even going to be there. I mean, I'm going to have to come in via Skype and talk to, Kirsten and Deej
Everybody.
and all of our friends and everybody. Are you going to be there?
No, I'm not going to be there.
Oh, see,
but
I really want to go this year.
The
I
One
really wanna go.
Ring will be there. We have a booth.
Yeah.
Look for the One Ring booth. We have awesome new T-shirts that we're excited to debut at New York Comic Con.
Was that the one you just showed me a couple of weeks
No.
ago?
No,
that's
new
a
one.
secret surprise.
And then we've got a panel, and of course we have Ringers Take Manhattan party this
That's right.
Friday. I think it's Friday night. We're having a party in Times Square. Go to the OneRing.net for all the details because we're doing up New York Comic Con like
God, I
a
wish I could
Hobbit
be there.
should.
I wish I could be there at New York Comic Con.
It's amazing. It's a
It's-
whole different vibe than any other convention. It's
That's
a
true.
New York vibe with Comic Con. So it's this weird thing. And New York Comic Con was the first time I ever saw a $300 photo op. Sigourney Weaver charges
Really?
$300 per photo op.
Wow. I guess she needs to pay her light bill.
And then Stallone charged $375.
Stallone?
Sylvester Stallone charged $375 for a
Do you
photo
know?
op.
Do you know the residual checks that he's still getting from Taco Bell? He doesn't need to charge $375 for a photo op.
People are willing to pay it.
He's getting checks from Taco Bell from all that crap they made us eat in 1994.
Hey, don't diss on Demolition Man.
I will diss on Demolition Man all day. I will. I'm just messing with you. I hear people in the background going, "Say what?" No, I'm totally messing around. But now, the thing about going to these events is that some fans are looking for the free moment. where they can get a selfie or like a carefully calibrated I'm in the hallway bumping into you in the hallway type of shot where they don't have to pay for it. That's what fans are really looking for. Like, oh, somebody was just walking over to the exit stairs in the back, and I just happened to be here. Hey, Tom Hiddleston. Click. You know, like,
All
fans are always
the
looking for that.
more reason to go to our Ringers Take Manhattan Hobbit party.
Where the actors will actually walk in and have a drink with you, and next they hang out.
You never know
hang
who
out.
will show up to our parties.
That's true.
But
That's very true.
If history is
Thank you,
shown
Nicholas.
us, people appreciate the One Ring and the fans.
They do. They do.
And they love coming to our little soirees.
Nicholas, I appreciate that you appreciate Miyazaki. Yes, it took you this long to notice I'm wearing my Totoro hat.
So, Cliff, wrapping up on this, great conversation about horror
Hold
and
on.
Tolkien.
One more director comes to mind who might actually bring something interesting to the table.
Terrence Malick.
No. Terrence Malick wouldn't know a decent film narrative if it bit him on the behind. I mean, I love his movies, but they're completely atmospheric dreamscapes. This is not narrative
I want
driven.
an episode
That's not what he
directed.
makes.
I want an episode directed
Don't
by
you
Terrence
talk
Malick
to me about-
of
no.
just the elves walking through the woods.
We want Ridley
Just the
Scott.
el-
I want
the el-
Ridley Scott. I want Ridley Scott to come to Middle Earth and do something interesting. Maybe an episode or two, maybe a particular story arc for a character. I want Ridley Scott because he's amazing and I trust him. I trust him as a filmmaker. I do. Why are you looking at me like that?
Did you see Alien Covenant?
Yeah, I did see Alien Covenant and Prometheus. And I could teach you a thing or two about
So if
high-end intelligent sci-fi if you stop and listen.
he took 40 years of myth building in the aliens world and threw it all away in Covenant, and you want to hand him the keys to Middle Earth?
He didn't throw it all away. What? Okay, are you on
Did
his
you
side?
see Covenant?
Okay, yes, I have seen Covenant several times. And I've seen and I've studied and analyzed Prometheus many times. And if you don't think that panspermia is an absolutely essential piece of science, much less a piece of science fiction that belongs in the alien universe, then you're not a science fiction writer. And you know what? You're not.
Ridley Scott does not do horror well
Ridley Scott does horror.
anymore.
Well, I think
Oh, your hesitation is
I think that he doesn't have to do horror. He has done high epic romantic adventure in Gladiator. He has done gritty military films with close-up combat, Black Hawk Down. He has done intense character dramas, you know, The Color, what was it? All the Money in the World?
Yep.
He has done it all. And he has even put Mia Sara and Tom Cruise in a soundstage filled with pollen and passed it off as a French-flavored European fantasy film.
Yes.
Ridley Scott can do it. I think Mr. Scott should come on board. Are you listening, Ridley? Come on, come to Middle Earth. We want you. We want you here.
I don't agree.
That's just me.
I'm
I'm a one-man talking bucket of nonsense. You know what? This man, he disagrees with me, and that's legit. You know what? If I can't get Ridley Scott, then I'll settle for Alfonso Cuarón. Okay?
I'm going to stick with not just
You about to say
October.
something? You about to chime in?
For the next
No, okay,
few
okay.
for the next few years, I am going to campaign for horror related filmmakers, artists, musicians, soundtrack people,
Ooh.
actors, anyone that comes from the horror genre needs to be top of the list for Lord of the Rings.
Nicholas wants to look up a few good Terrence Malick films. Probably because maybe you've never seen. Where would you recommend Terrence Malick film studies begin?
Oh, man.
The Thin Red Line?
No,
The Vietnam movie? No.
No.
How about
Start with his last two movies.
his last two films?
Yeah.
What was it called?
the
The Tree of Life?
No, Knight of Cups.
Night of Cups.
Yeah.
Knight of Cups.
If you can get through Terrence Malick's last two films,
Actually, you should look at Badlands. You should look at Badlands.
Badlands
actually.
is probably his best
Yeah.
classic
Yeah.
film.
Take a look at Badlands for sure. But
I really enjoy his last two films. One was called To the Wonder,
Okay, to the wonder.
It is a study in a couple in the lifespan of a relationship, a marriage. It's a study in a marriage, and it's just basically two people going through all the machinations of a marriage. And then the most recent one was Knight of Cups with Batman. What's his name?
You mean Christian Bale?
Christian Bale. And there's a bunch of people in Knight of Cups, but it's basically a snapshot of what it's like to live in L.A. If anyone asks, what's it like to live in L.A., I recommend Knight of Cups.
I need to look that up myself.
Because it just, you start off in the morning at the beach, and you end up at a Beverly Hills party, then you end up in the mountains, and then you're stumbling around Hollywood, and then you're downtown at a warehouse.
That sounds like
thing.
my life. That sounds like
right.
It
is.
Yeah.
It is. So Terrence Malick is really good at giving you the feeling of a part of life, and that's why I think he would be good to do an episode explaining why elves move through the forest singing songs.
Yes, I'm with you on that.
Like that's the story Terrence Malick can tell of Middle Earth. It's like the songs of the wood elves. You know, the mythical wood elves that people are shocked to see when they see them in Lord of the Rings. Terrence Malick can do that story justice.
I agree. Okay, intriguing. Marfels, I'm glad you mentioned this. How about a woman director? How about a female director? Thank you. There have not been any names on the table yet. Forgive me.
There have.
Forgive me.
I mentioned,
not in this conversation today.
I mentioned the Constantine. I mentioned Punisher. I mentioned Constantine.
Okay, but not these women by name. We didn't mention the names of these individuals, but we did mention that they're in charge of some big shows like Constantine and the others. But you know, Catherine Bigelow. Let's talk about Miss ex-wife of James Cameron.
She doesn't do horror. I'm telling you.
Have you seen Strange Days with Ralph Fiennes and Angela Bassett?
Science fiction. It's not horror.
Yeah, so?
I'm telling you.
I think
you
Catherine
have to
Bigelow
start in
is
horror.
a very talented director as well. She could really do something.
Oh, totally. She's
really?
Very talented. But
look at The Hurt Locker.
If you want the first season to succeed, start in horror.
Okay. That's Justin's advice.
All right.
Start with horror. You know, this has been a fascinating show, but one last horror element that came in on the live chat. You know, we did have a hotline, and you guys, we have been neglectful. We didn't even mention our hotline, 530-64-FRODO. And in the hotline, I believe it was you, Pipsquet, who said the most horrifying and scary element that still freaks me out to this day in the Fellowship of the Ring. They'll take your order over here, guys, at the center of the bar. The moment when Frodo and Bilbo are in Rivendell, and Bilbo says, "Can I please take a look at that ring just one last time?" And he says,
I really would like to.
This is your mithril. He says, "This is harder than dragon scales and light as a feather." And he says, "Here, I'm going to see you put it on." Put it on. So Elijah
ring.
Wood starts
my
to
old ring.
And then the ring shows up, and he's like, and then Bilbo
would like to hold it.
Suddenly has this freak out on his face where they cross-faded in a demon puppet, like it was an Ian Holm demonized freak puppet that was instantly cross-faded for like 2 frames with his face, and then they cut it away. And thank you for mentioning that on the hotline. That is one of the most genuinely horrifying, scary moments in The Lord of the Rings, and it was not something that could have been done unless it was a horror director like Peter Jackson who knew how to throw that in there like that.
And look,
so, yeah, you're right in that.
Even Lurtz.
You're right.
Lurtz was the scariest thing in a movie of scary things. Yes. Balrogs and demon horses and evil Bilbo. The fact that Lurtz terrified us at the end of all of those calamities, I mean, that's the power of a horror director. So
yes.
Anyway, Days of Heaven and Badlands are the 2 movies that you can watch if you want to learn about Terrence Malick. Days of Heaven and Badlands, and then Knight of Cups and To the Wonder. And I think a lot of them are on Amazon Prime. Anyway,
definitely worth
Cliff,
checking out. Yeah, hey,
what
a great
has
show!
Been a great start to
what a great
October
show.
or Orktober.
Orktober. So at the end of the show, I guess I should be Clifford Bloodway.
Clifford Bloodway.
Am I going to be Clifford Bloodway for October?
All right, chat room.
Maybe.
You know what to do. Any
All right.
other recommendations? You can text us at the hotline. It's always open. 530-643-7636, I believe is the number. 64-FRODO.
530-64-FRODO.
So if you come up with something clever that Cliff can rename his Twitter account as something spooky, Cliff Broodway.
Are you going to do that November thing where you grow your...
No,
like-
that's November.
That's No Shave November.
Yeah.
Next month, I mean. Are you going to do...
No,
you're
you
already-
should.
You're fully bearded, brother.
You should do it.
No, if I do No Shave November, I end up looking like David
Ballin'.
Letterman.
You'll look
I
like
look just
Ballin'.
like David Letterman with his big old scary white beard. You don't want that. You don't want that. I would lose my chance to
Why?
get a date on Friday night.
Ballin' would look great.
I would never get a date on Friday night if I grew my beard out like that.
All right.
Ballin'? No, I'm not going to do the ballin' thing. You're nuts.
Well, we'll see you next week, Cliff.
Will we? Mr. Justin Sewell, thank you for co-hosting and thank you for producing the show. We want to encourage all of our viewers to find us online at theonering.net. We are the world's largest and most productive, and dare I say, we are the most comprehensive fan web portal for J.R.R. Tolkien fans. You want to learn more details about the Amazon series, Taking Us Back to Middle-earth, come find us on all of our social media platforms. Ustream, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and of course, the Bookface Vortex. And you can find us at the One Ring Net on all of those formats. One word of caution. Be gentle to yourselves, my friends, because no one else will. Take good care of yourselves this week. Be safe and be sound. And you can find me as well online as QuickBeam2000. My name is Clifford Broadway, and I'm very happy to have you guys here with us again. Sorry to be so late, but I was literally struggling to rescue the trees today. So it was
Scum
my
and
bad.
villainy always welcomes.
I was literally up a tree on a painter's ladder struggling to save this tree. And I'm afraid of what's going to happen tomorrow. Bye, guys. She did who? Bombadil? Really? I have to see it. So she made a short film? Oh, the Babadook. Yeah, I know that. I thought you said Bombadil, which is our... I thought you were talking about our character. Yeah, I know the Babadook. Yeah, everyone knows the Babadook. Yeah, that's just amazing. That's amazing, yeah. She would be good. Again. Yeah. We should have mentioned her.
I'm telling you, like, look at all the connecting pieces. Like, Howard Shore is the horror soundtrack.
How did you get in to see that? How did you get in to see it?
Sunday. I saw this in January.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. Oh, I was going to tell you, I just realized that I have a copy of the Mabinogion, but with Alan Lee's illustrations.
Really?
Yeah, because it's a hardback